Whew, thank you, Michelle. That was gorgeous. Good morning, everybody. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Reverend Edward Trout. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm an ordained interfaith minister through One Spirit Seminary out of New York. It is my delight to be your speaker here this morning. I want to start with a short story, as I often like to. This one may sound familiar. There are lots of variations of this story, so you may have heard it in other forms. But it goes something like this. There was an old man, an old wise man, who was not physically doing well. He knew his end time was coming. So he sent for his young son one morning. The son was an adult, but still very young, and didn't really know much about the ways of the world. And his father said to him, "Son, I'm going to be leaving this earthly plane soon, and there's some things that you should know. First of all, one of the things that you're going to inherit is this old family watch." And the father handed him a lovely but old pocket watch and said, "Now, son, I want you to take this to the jeweler downtown, and I want you to see what they say the value is." So the son goes into downtown, goes to the jeweler, and the jeweler looks at it and says, it's an old watch, it's fine, I really couldn't appraise it for more than, say, $100. So the son goes back and tells his dad this news, and the father kind of shakes his head like, that sounds about right. And he said, "Well, son, you have a friend who runs a pawn shop, right? Why don't you take it to him and see what he says he can do? He's your friend, I'm sure he'll give you the best deal he can." So the son takes it to his friend's pawn shop and comes back a little bit later and tells his father, it was even worse. He said, with the age of it, and there were even like scratches I hadn't noticed, he said, at most he would give me $20. So I should take it back to the jeweler, right? And his dad said, "Well, there's one more place I want you to try." And Dad reached into a drawer and pulled out an old business card. He said, "Check with this lady first, see what she has to say." So the son called her up and then went to visit her. Turns out she was a museum curator, and the watch was a pretty spectacularly unique pocket watch. She didn't think she would ever see one of those in person in her lifetime. And the son came back very excited and said, "She offered us $35,000 for this watch." He said, "So should I sell it to her?" And the dad said, "Son, it's going to be yours. What you do with it once I have died is up to you." He said, "But the important thing that I wanted you to learn is the value of this watch was seen as different depending upon where it was. And the same is true for you. So if you're in a place where you are not feeling valued, like the jeweler or the pawn shop, even your friends may not see it, there's nothing to be mad about. You're just in the wrong place. Go find the place where you are valued." Lovely story. And I'm sure in the annals of history, it actually has happened more than once. Value versus worth. That's what I'm starting with this morning. That's sort of the thrust of this talk. They're used so interchangeably, right? And they can be interchangeable, but fundamentally they do come from different places. When you're talking about value, we are often talking about the more personal and situational, the thing that I'm going to look at and have an opinion about. Where do I place my values? How much do I value this thing personally? Worth, when you get right down to it, normally comes down to the worldly market value of something. When you say, how much are you worth, you start thinking about all of your assets. But when you say, how valuable are you, it's a whole different set of criteria. Proverbs 22:1, "A good name is to be more desired than great wealth. Favor is better than silver and gold." A concrete way for me to look at some of this is within our community. A few weeks back, we had talked about this building, this old building that needs a lot of work. And the question came up, are we going to try to get it evaluated by putting it on the market to see what the market would bear. That would be the building's worth. And overwhelmingly, the majority of members said, we value the building too much to do that and check its worth. That's part of the difference between value and worth. We feel an emotional connection, but we also see a spiritual value in this space because of how it's been imbued over the years with so much positive spirituality. So, a really small example of this for me, much more minor by comparison. I grew up in my youngest church days in the Otterbein United Methodist Church out in Greenfield. It was a church that had been built by my ancestors, so that was kind of fun. And it was a very conservative, small-town church. We were not very demonstrative in that church. And I remember a time when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, and we had young musicians in the church performing for us on guitar and things that we were not used to seeing. And they got up there and they sang, and some of you who are of an age will remember the song, A Horse with No Name. So these beautiful young 20-somethings, they might have even been like 19, they might have been teenagers still, saying, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. Beautiful song. Well done. They got to the end, finished, silence. Because, of course, this is a conservative church and we're not very demonstrative. And then there's my 6'3" father who goes, and the rest of the church just starts applauding. That's a bit of value to me that was shown. My father knew, like in this place, we don't applaud individual performances, right? This is all for spiritual stuff. But he also knew those young people needed to know we really appreciated hearing from them. And he didn't care that it broke tradition for him to start clapping his big old hands and there was no mistaking that somebody was clapping when he started. That's, to me, all part of the same thing. How do we live these things? How do we show it's not just you're a musician who can sing, that's great. And I value that. We value that beautiful music. So beautiful. The mellowness of that tone. Right? We've got that value, that personal value. We've got the things that we emotionally value. There's also spiritual value. And sometimes that can get tricky for us because, let's face it, we are these humans, right? We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So sometimes when we look at the spiritual side of things, it is so expansive, so big, that it's hard for us to put it in perspective. Like the old story, this is probably one that's familiar to many of you too, where there's some guy trying to size up God. So he asks God, so God, like 1,000 years to you, what is that to you? And God's like, for me, that's just a second of time. He's like, well then, how about $1 million? What's that to you? And God's like, well, like a penny. The guy thinks about it for a second and says, God, I'm not a rich man. Could you spare me a penny? And God said, absolutely, give me a second. Right? Welcome to my life, right? It's where it's on God's terms. It's on the universe's timetable. It's not up to me to dictate that. But can I see myself open to that? Can I see those values as I want them expressed? Speaking of values, we have our Unity of Indianapolis values. These were discerned many years ago. I want to go through them. We talked about them not all that long ago, but I want to give a statement, and then I want us to actually say each as an affirmation. So our first one is transformation. So I am growing and helping others to grow. Say that with me. I am transformation. Try that again. I am transformation. Great. Next one. I am learning and helping others to learn. I am enlightenment. I see the Christ presence in every person, including myself. I am divinity. I meet people where they are in life, including myself. I am acceptance. I encourage and inspire others and myself. I am empowerment. And finally, I believe in the inherent goodness of God and of people. I am positivity. I am transformation. I am enlightenment. I am divinity. I am acceptance. I am empowerment. I am positivity. These are the values that we collectively say we hold. And we've been affirming this month the power and the presence of Spirit now manifest in and through me. This is how it is meant to manifest, so that I use my inner power for good in our world. You will find your own values to add to that, I trust. But those 6 are pretty big in this community. We share the divine with the world through ourselves. And we share of ourselves to bring that good to the world. Daily word this morning, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. So deeply do we care for you that we are determined to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own selves, because you have become very dear to us. We say these words. We come in this building, we say them, we hear them, we mean them, we feel them, and then we go out into the world. And the world has a way of distracting us and detracting from the work we're trying to do. And then we have our own little ego that pops up and chatters to us. And then, even more insidious, we have our subconscious that doesn't quite chatter, we feel things and we act on those feelings, but we don't identify where it's coming from. When we are confronted, it can be difficult, and especially sometimes when the stakes are really high. There is no holy war, right? Holy war is an oxymoron. And yet, when those things crop up in the world, and happens all the time, do you feel empowered to stop it, or do you feel helpless against it? If somebody believes that their religion is better than yours, or the only way, is that a challenge? Is that something that you can rise above? If somebody openly believes that there is a higher race, do you speak up? I won't go into the details. There was a musician friend months back who had posted a meme that as soon as I saw it, I just went, that is horribly racist. And I tried to bypass it for a second, and I was like, I can't. I have to say something. And I went back and I said to her in the comments, wow, that is the most racist thing I have seen this week. To which she said, what do you mean? That image isn't racist. If that's how you see these people, then that must be on you. And I said, the image that you used has a long-standing history of demeaning people and being used in a racist way. Please, I implore you, if you don't believe me, ask your black friends. I was unfriended. It's like, okay, but I hope she still learned something from it. Because I couldn't let it pass. It was so blatant, so wrong. So, here's the thing, in my youth, I don't know that I would have done that. When I was much younger, I was so much, let's not make waves. Let's not confront. Let's be a people pleaser. And I like to think I still would have said something, but I don't know for a fact that I would have. I was talking to a dear friend earlier this week about methods that we use sometimes to avoid those things. In my youth, avoidance as a tactic was truly part of my approach. I've gotten much better about confronting those things anymore. As I learned in seminary, intellectualization is one of my tools that I use to keep myself safe. Yeah, I know. Because as long as I can analyze it and think about it from a safe distance, I don't have to feel it. I can, you read the self-help book and you read the exercise and you go, oh, I see what they're doing. I'm not going to do the exercise because I understand it. Anybody else, or is that just me? Okay, good. But I realized in seminary, it's like, I can't do that. That's keeping me from experiencing things that I'm meant to experience. Another one that I will use is the numbing, where it's like you spend so much time on social media, doom scrolling, or watching mindless television, or for some people that's drinking and drugs and so forth. All of those techniques. There's some others that I want to bring up just because they're common, and you may have experienced these as well. And there's many more than this too, by the way. There's dozens. But when you have that thing that you should confront, want to confront, there's somewhere your values are being violated but you're not addressing it. Have you ever felt conversion into the body where your body starts getting sick, symptoms of illness because of that stress? The actual refusal to accept the reality. Like you see it, but you're like, oh, but that's not what's happening. That can't be the case. You deny that reality. And I want to be very clear, whenever I talk about a psychological denial like that, that's very different from the spiritual denials that we use in Unity. In Unity, if you're newer to Unity, we use denials and affirmations often paired. The denial means, here's the situation, let's say, whatever. There's no money in the bank account. Okay, that's the reality, you can see that. But that doesn't control me, and that doesn't mean that there isn't an opportunity for all of the wealth. So I affirm that I have everything I need. That's a proper use of a denial. It has no control over me, as opposed to, oh no, that's not happening. That's a psychological denial. Rationalization, which is a dear friend of intellectualization, where we justify the behavior. And the funny thing I realized as I was looking at these things, I am more prone to do that for somebody else because I want to understand and I want to be understanding. And so when there's a behavior, I try to figure out why they have that behavior, which is great if you also address the behavior. Some of these things are fine as long as you're still going back to address it, right? Suppression, where you just consciously say, oh, I'm not going to think about that. We call that toxic positivity. No bad thoughts allowed. Yeah, but you just had a major loss. I can't think about it. Yes, you can. You should experience those emotions, recognize them, let them flow through you, go, this doesn't control me, but I feel it, and it will pass. Because if you try to suppress those things, they come out. It'll find its way out. The last one I'm going to mention, because this is one I also realized I used a lot in my college years, is sublimation. So sublimation is taking the negative thing and elevating it to something that is actually good and useful. Really simple example is you get really royally pissed off at somebody and you go out and you beat a punching bag, right? That's sublimation. It's like, I'm going to release that anger in a socially acceptable way that actually keeps me healthy. For me in college, that was throwing it into artwork. I can still remember very vividly working on a large woodcut one time when I was seriously angry, and I'm gouging wood out and gouging. Still one of my favorite woodcuts to this day, by the way. It was gouging, I was gouging. But the funny thing was then in the final print, there was so much energy moving, and it turned it into something of beauty. Again, this is a great way to handle it as long as you also deal with the issue. Otherwise, it'll keep coming up, and eventually that anger will wear you down. So, great, turn it into something positive and address it. And this is a far from exhaustive list, right? Perhaps a little exhausting, but it is not exhaustive. So when we find ourselves in that moment where my values are being challenged, and then I'm finding something that's keeping me from addressing it, step number one is to realize that I'm doing it, that I'm stopping myself from upholding that value. Step number two is to empower myself to then do something about it. That's why we use affirmations, right? Repeated affirmations get into that subconscious neural pathway and rewire us to the truth of who we are here to be. Do you cherish yourself enough to do that? Do you value yourself enough to be that? We have monthly affirmations here. We have monthly affirmation cards. I don't know how many are left out there, but if you do not have one of your own, I challenge you today to pick one up on your way out. You've heard the affirmation now a couple of times about the presence and the power of Spirit manifesting in me. That's the one for this month. I would love it if everybody in this room shared that meditation with themselves at night before going to bed, when you are really open to all of those subconscious things, repeated at least 3 times. And in fact, I would love if you would add our unity values onto it. So not only is Spirit manifesting to do good through you, but you are also transformation. You are enlightenment. You are divinity. You are acceptance. You are empowerment. You are positivity. And again, that's the kind of positivity where you see the underlying goodness, not where you use toxic positivity to deny the situation. And one other reminder, we are all here for you too. This is a community. This is a community that looks out for each other. This is a community that supports each other. Even when I don't agree with you, I love you and support you. Just like the family I grew up in. We debated all the time. Passionate debates, pounding the table, red in the face. And we loved each other so much, and still do. So, see the value in yourself. See the value in everyone else. I don't know your worldly worth. It may be very little, it may be a huge amount. But the worldly worth has nothing to do with your actual value. Your spiritual value is priceless. Your presence in this world is priceless. You are here to do things that nobody else can do but you, because nobody else would do them the same way that you do them. You're here for a reason. I guarantee you, you are in the right place at the right time. You're here to do good in this world and here to make a difference. So, know your worth and live your values. Amen. Aho, ashe. So it is. Namaste.